So exactly a month ago, around the 7th of October, the Canadian Immigration Minister dropped a bombshell, something that most students in Canada have been waiting for. And this was that post 15th of November, the Canada immigration system is going to allow international students who have at least the permit to work off campus to be able to work for more than 20 hours a week. So basically, post 15th of November, the limit of 20 hours a week was going to be lifted. And as an international student, you can work as many hours as you want without any issues. This new measure was basically aimed at addressing the historic labor shortage in Canada. Canadian employers have been facing unprecedented problems with filling roles in their companies. With nearly 1 million job vacancies and labor shortage at an all-time high, the economy had to turn to immigration to at least fill this particular labor shortage. So international students were going to be key in filling this particular gap that has currently been existing, with nearly over 500,000 international students currently in Canada who at least have the potential to work additional hours. This temporary change could have a huge impact on the labor market. This also reflects how important international students are to the Canadian economy. In fact, even research has shown that immigration was going to be critical in filling this current labor shortage and filling essential jobs. So basically, the new change was that between the 15th of November 2022 to 31st of December 2023, any international student who have the authorization to work off campus can now work as many as they want without having to limit themselves to the existing 20 hours that existed before. So basically, any student who has the right to work off campus, now you can pick up as many shifts as you want without at least compromising your chances when it comes to getting permanent residence or even citizenships in the future. And also, any foreign national who had his at least application with the IRCC before that Friday, the 15th of November, also qualify for this as long as the application is approved. Before, the students were limited to working only 20 hours off campus, even though if they decide to pick up a job on campus, they can work as many hours as they want. And this restriction was only lifted only during breaks and semester breaks, like maybe during the summer or even the winter breaks. However, with the cost of living currently rising, many students were advocating for this 20 hours limit to be lifted, so that they will be allowed to work as many hours as they want to be able to afford to at least work and study in Canada when they get here. Canada has been facing record high inflation, and it has been affecting almost everybody across the country. International students were the ones that were mostly hit more because they had to possibly convert their foreign currencies to the Canadian currency to be able to afford to pay their tuition and also living expenses. So basically now they have to spend more foreign currencies to be able to afford to live in Canada. And also when it comes to paying for things like tuition fee, international students ends up paying as much as 3 times the amount that residents have to pay. So this new measure was going to give international students at least the chance to earn more money to pay for their tuition and living expenses. Canada is a popular destination when it comes to making a decision to study abroad. And Canadian universities offer quality education, which ends up sometimes being cheaper than other countries like the US. So when it comes to making a decision to study abroad, most students always end up choosing Canada over US when their options are limited to just Canada and the US. Last year alone, the Canadian immigration system issued over 450,000 study permits. And this year, they are on course to exceed that number again to hit a record high number. So with this new change, one debate that had always existed among international students, be it potential and existing students, was brought back to the front. And this was, can you actually afford to pay yourself through education in Canada while studying and working as an international student? And this applies whether you decide to work full-time or part-time, because now there's no limit on the number of hours that you can work off campus as an international student. So that means you are not limited to the 20 hours. So basically, you can choose whether to do 20 hours as a part-time employee, or you go for the 40 hours or more as a full-time worker. And all this is allowed as long as you are still a student, which means you don't have to compromise your education at the expense of working to make money. When this was announced, I saw a lot of potential students in forums that I found myself in jubilating, because to them, their prayers were answered, and now they can package their proof of funds when they decide to put in their study permit application. And when it's approved, they will work as a students to pay themselves through education without recourse to any form of external funding. So their plan was, I will get to Canada, work, pay my tuition fee, find money to pay for my expenses, and possibly save to pay for the next year's tuition fee without having to come to Canada with any form of funding. One thing that I've come to realize is that some people listen to and watch other people's videos of them claiming to come to Canada, work and pay themselves through education without asking any further questions. And they forget that when it comes to this kind of things, everybody's situation is different. And they base their decisions on these videos, package the application, get it approved, get to Canada, only to find themselves stranded and find out that the reality is different from what actually they were told. And I've heard multiple of these stories and met a couple of people who find themselves in this situation. And most times it becomes an issue because you now have to find a way to help them out, because they found themselves in the foreign land where there is no other help coming from anywhere. And sometimes when you reach out to family and friends, all they can tell you is find a way to help them, because we don't want them to come back home empty-handed. And what most people fail to realize is tuition fees is just one aspect of the amount of money that you need to be able to at least live and survive in Canada as an international student. There are other things that you need to pay for when you get here. From my experience, when it comes to studying in Canada, there are 3 major expenses that you have to plan for, because you will incur them, and these are basics that you cannot dodge in any way. The first one is tuition fee, and that one can cost you between $5,000 to up to $25,000 a year. And this is dependent on the school that you pick, the course that you pick, and even the province that you decide to go and study in. The second one is living expenses, and that can cost you between $300 to $600 a month. And this includes your transportation, feeding, phone bill, clothing, household products, and the others. So depending on your lifestyle, you have to budget between $3,600 to up to $7,200 a year for these particular expenses. And this is not avoidable unless you don't plan to at least live when you are in Canada. Because when you get here, you need to eat, you need to pay for transportation, you need to pay for a bus fare, you need to pay for household products, you need to buy things for yourself like clothing, because the weather is going to change, and if you came here in summer, you will need to get winter clothes. If you go here in winter and you didn't bring winter clothes, you need to buy them. So all these things, you need to budget for them before you get here. The third major expense is accommodation and utilities. And basically this averages about $600 a month. That's if you decide to go for possibly sharing a 1-bedroom where you share with other roommates. Basically that's other flatmates, people that you're going to share with. But if you decide to, let's say, have a full apartment to yourself, then you pay more for this. But because it's a general discussion, we are just going with an average number of $600. That means annually you need to budget about $7,200 to cover this. And I'm assuming that $600 will include your utilities. That's your heating, your gas, and possibly hydro. And if you are lucky, some of the accommodations that you'll find yourself in, it will come with internet as part of the total fees. And anybody who is currently living in Canada will tell you that being able to cover all these with $600 a month, that means you are stretching yourself possibly to the limit. Or possibly you are lucky enough to find a very good landlord who decided not to overcharge for all these things together. So the truth is, if you can find any way to reduce any of these three to the bare minimum, you are going to increase the chances of you being able to at least pay yourself through studying in Canada without recourse to any external funding, because these are three major expenses that you have to budget for, and all these three you cannot avoid. And if you got value out of this video, kindly hit the subscribe button to join this family as we learn together on this journey. And don't forget to hit the like button so YouTube will see value in this video and suggest it to other people who will need it. And kindly share this video to family and friends who also need it. Till the next video, catch you.